I want to thank you all for coming to the Newtown Review, which is, of course, one of our claims to fame as Avid Bookshop, thanks to Al Dixon and Deidre Sugiyushi. So we have to give them a round of applause to start out with, because even though Al's not here, let's give Deidre a round of applause.
Al!
Let's give Al. He'll feel it wherever he is. We look forward to doing this every time we get to, and this is a wonderful chance for us to come together as a community and celebrate local talent as well as talent from anywhere. And we hope that you guys will remember us whenever you need a book to buy. Joni's wonderful book is on sale tonight. It is actually a staff pick of Avid's. So we ask that if you want her to sign it, you'll pick it up here and then bring it over to her, and she'll be happy to do that for you. So we thank you all so much. And I'm going to introduce Kristen, our first reader. Kristen and I talked about public speaking tonight and how nervous it makes us. So Kristen Gleason. Oh wait, that was the icebreaker. We're done now. We're done. Kristen Gleason has lived in California, Montana, and northern Norway. Her fiction and poetry have appeared online and in print, most recently in Fence and the Gettysburg Review. She lives in Athens, Georgia with Lola and Neil. So let's give her a round of applause.
Hi, thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. And it was Al who invited me, but he's not here, but thank you, Al. So I didn't have anything short enough to read in the amount of time that I have. So I'm just going to read something I wrote this week and do what Reg did that one time and just stop reading when 15 minutes is up. So that's the plan. If it seems to be going much longer than 15 minutes, it means the buzzer didn't go off and you should just stop me. Okay, this is called The Abolition of Film. My very last client was an immigrant on the Ancient. It had been decades since the great pouring in, but his offness still showed around the eyes, and for this he was mildly persecuted by the people who lived on our snowy island. This persecution was a chill he was always catching. It was nestled in the angle of every native face, like a glacier tended by a troll in the shadow of a mountain. In town, he often mentioned that his feet were numb, and he didn't know why. He didn't understand that a certain type of sock was being withheld from him. Instead, he saw himself as vital in the way of a variance, and a dedicated consumer to boot. But when I, who belonged, looked at him, I saw a man nearly entombed in ice, whose only possibility for escape was contained in his left eye, this like someone's idea of a joke resembling a native's. Plus his humors on that side were extremely warm and kept an eye hole melting free. So if he didn't belong, he had at least his permagenetic heat, which ensured him the potential for breath. He would, I hoped, go on. He was awfully attractive, fierce of face and black hole staring, but he was also long-chested and weak-necked, and he had a pensioner's taste in clothing. On top of that, he took a broad view of himself. There was no topic he would not debate. In particular, he enjoyed lively conversations that seemed to be about natural history, but were actually somnambulant rehearsals of the manifesto that had failed his parents. They were coming through, you see. This was automatic conversation. In spite of this, he was almost universally wanted, especially by the elderly, plus exchange students, tourists, inpatients, etc. So as his support person, I helped him maintain a manageable pace, which I could do quite well because he was not wanted by me. When I took him through the streets, I behaved as if I had a mad horse on lead. I found myself blinding him against the twinnish teens, which was for his own good, and often I whispered soothing stuff when we passed the hair salon. Because I wasn't against a good time, but it got me when they, meaning everyone, came up sidling sly, chill of face but hot of body, asking for a ride. They who would never sit in his one big room or ask him down from the ridge to share a potato or take him to the hothouse with a shaker of salt were the mad ones. They who were always asking to be plunged by the tool they considered most dirty. So yes, it sometimes made me desperate, though I did almost always let him go. But as soon as we were on the trails, far away from the kiosks and the whale pots flaming in against the ice, I would mentally unhoof him, and we would frolic on the freshly tracked snow and crouch in the underpine like thieves. This was not part of my job, but I put it down to show that I was not entirely immune to his charms. We rarely spoke, except about his feet, and sometimes about the possibility of his one day obtaining skis, and although I knew this would never happen, I enjoyed imagining it with him. I loved the thought of his extra long middle, swooping left beyond the trees, and its taking, because of his torso's extraordinary length, at least 2 blinks more for his head to disappear. But this was not an erotic slowing of time. This was purely aesthetic and maybe a little pitying. I wanted him to go longer, much longer than the time remaining to him on Earth. I wanted his body to begin and end elsewhere, at home, meaning his, meaning not here, meaning even I, the one assigned to the task of his inclusion, wanted him out. When I dropped him off at the end of the day, I'd head straight to the silent movie theater and sit in the front row by myself with 1 beer and 1 glass of water and watch the girl at the piano, who seemed to have been carved from the pale blue under ice, whose face was so determined that she would have been hard-pressed to make any expression at all. What I've described so far is typical of the island, but she was not. She was ultra-typical, and in that way extraordinary. Plus, she was unseeing and completely devoid of life. She played music without playing music. She never ever turned to the audience. She was the mold. So I'd walk home through the streets with a sway in my step. I'd allow myself to parse her until the hangman's cart. Then I'd stop and buy a kebab from him, and he'd say, "How's it hanging?" And I'd say, "Like a sickle," and we'd both bow our heads and snicker. Then I'd take a seat on the high bench, prop my legs up on the snow, and sum her up. I almost always came to the same conclusion, with periodic variations that I attributed to the heat of that day's kebab. I could pour myself into her. I could vanish. I could be like a secret spring running fast inside of her, and not even she would know I was there. But I had no plans. I intended to take no action. I was a support contact in a medium-sized village, and I was still relatively young. I knew that even the girl at the piano, who seemed the absolute height of chill, could turn out to be one of those who came to my doorstep in tears requesting clarification, or who obscured the existence of the outer sock from my charge, but still willingly took a turn with him behind my back. One day I picked him up early. I wanted to hit the shrimp stand before evening, and he was still in his robe. He asked me inside while he dressed, and I protested. I wasn't supposed to. It was in violation of my role as representative of the outer social. But then I spied the flirty tips of 2 skis peeking out from behind a large jacket hanging in the hallway. I asked him where he'd gotten them. He dropped